Welcome everybody back to the After Dark show. I'm Don Rogers. Tonight's going to be a really awesome show, and it's one that I've been trying to put together, and I found like two of the absolute best people I could for this. They are both two of the smartest guys I know, and two very talented and skilled musicians as well. So tonight's episode is going to be on the weaponization of music and frequency. And who I have brought tonight, like I was saying, I could not have found two better guests to help me with this one. Our first guest is our very own resident heretic here at Forbidden Knowledge Network, Stephen Stathis. You guys are gonna have to bear with me. I have to do this old school on my phone again. So add to stage. Stephen, thank you for coming back on.
Hey, man, no problem. What's going on, Don? Thanks for having me back. And you know what? I'm no stranger to technical difficulties. Let's do it, man. We still got this.
Yes, sir. And the second person that we're having on tonight is a New York neo-shaman. I've had him on the show several times before. I consider this man a true friend of mine and an absolutely wonderful intellectual colleague. He is a high vibrational musician and the host of Fearless Conversation, Mr. Frank Castle.
What's up, everyone? Don, it's great to see you guys. Thank you so much for having me out tonight.
I just want to, before we even get into this, Frank, I had the pleasure of meeting an OG member of the Fearless family recently. Her name's Melinda, and Spinja was on my last show and talking how she had achieved her second level of Reiki and said, you know, she wants to do some practice sessions if anybody wants to reach out to her. Well, an OG member of the Fearless family, Melinda, who listens to this show, hit her up. So it was wonderful. You have absolutely sensational fans. It was one of the most intriguing and polite conversations I've had in quite some time with a complete stranger that felt like family. So you were doing it right. You have the right people backing you, Frank.
Don, we bringing it together, baby.
Yeah,
we're doing it. Oh, by the way, awesome intro.
I was gonna say, dude. Yeah.
I think you know the dude that sings that.
Yeah, man. That whoever that is, I think that's Sons of the Suns music.
Yes, it is.
You gotta check him out. That's some high vibrational music you got there. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thank you for telling it.
Steve, I've been wanting this all week.
This is gonna be good, man. I mean, you know, we every time me and you have been in a show, Frank, we just fed off each other. And from what Don was saying too, every time you guys do a show, you guys feed off each other. So all three of us feeding off of each other is gonna be interesting, man. You know, especially. We were just talking a little bit before the show too, man. You know, Don, we've been sharing technical difficulties. Don had a story with his laptop. Frank had an incident before he came in tonight. And, you know, I was having mic issues, really strange mic issues. And we were all joking that, you know, it seems like something didn't want this to go down, but it's shit out of luck because here we all are.
Three's the magic number, baby. Let's rock, right?
Yeah,
I was just saying right before we started, right? I'll punch a demon right in his face. You don't win, I win.
See, that's why me and Frank very much resonate, because I kind of have that same mentality when it comes to that. So it's like, you know, just give it a nice little slam and put it in its place, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you get transmuted and you leave permanente. Exactly. Come back as a flower in my front yard. You can feed a bumblebee. They'll be like, nah, I'm out. Well, listen, it's great to see everyone here tonight. Through it all, happy new year. And this is strong. This is magic. I'm just going to say that as we start the show. 3 is the magic number. That's it. We're ready to rock. So everyone that's listening, it's great to be with you tonight, but prepare for the frequency. It's good to ground.
Exactly, man.
Yeah, prepare. Exactly. It's coming.
I know, man. So I mean, we're diving into, it's funny because that's something I haven't really shared a lot, Don. I haven't brought out my musical talents. I haven't talked about them in a while, but no, it's going to be interesting to talk about this. This is, as we know, Frank's, does music himself, and being in the music industry in the younger years, man. I mean, this was like back in like 2005, 2006. There was always a hint of this, occult vibe. There's always had something interesting to it. There was, just some of the venues I played, even dealing with a lot of these national acts that I was playing with too at the time. There was just always some kind of interest. It seemed like there was this club, like, how George Carlin would say, "It's this big club and you ain't in it." And that was the vibe I would get. And if you don't mind, Don, let me bring that up real quick. I'm going to share it on the screen. Yeah. So this is an article from one of my shows. Way back in season 1. Now it's you just gotta let it on the stage.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how to do this on my phone, dude. This could be interesting. Yeah, because it didn't even bring me up a notification. Guests. Here we go. Boom. Add to stage.
Nice.
I am figuring this out.
And you got some audience feedback. Picture quality.
You got it, man. So this is a article. It's called, I'll just briefly go over real quick, but it's AI, Cyber Satan, and the Battle for Your Brain. It's a Substack article from Nathan M. Wiley. It's actually cited with all of the sources for the material, though, at the bottom. So this is a pretty legit article. But one of the things, when we talk about the weaponization of music and frequency, it really all started. Don has some information on it starting earlier, but when we have the major aspects of it, let's take a look at, the Beatles. Let's take a look at the Tavistock Institute and the CIA. So, here we can kind of I'll zoom in for you guys. We can see how Crowley is definitely on the cover there of Sgt. Pepper's, Sgt. Pepper's Club Band. And, we see a lot of this symbolism, that kind of started to begin throughout the years into the music industry. And it didn't even just stop with the Beatles. We talk about Elvis. This even goes back before the Beatles, too. So, we see that, at least to this degree, we can see all of this symbolism that has existed in the music industry, at least, here in the United States and definitely overseas in countries like the UK. And this is kind of where it all begins. We take a look at Jim Morrison. We take a look at Michael Jackson, even though we kind of even saw what happened with Michael Jackson. There's a lot of speculative theories onto why he was really dead and what really happened to him. Was it a smear campaign because he spoke out? I don't necessarily know for sure. But at least, man, we can see that the weaponization of music definitely starts from an area of these intelligence agencies that have kind of worked their way. They saw how powerful music was, and I'm sure Frank can attest to this too, saw how powerful music was, how powerful culture, how it influences culture. And, that is one of the biggest things that they use to manipulate us today. They manipulate us through the culture and they control the masses. So this is kind of its earlier stages, its beginnings, and we see it even dates back to Elvis Presley. And as Don's going to tell us a little bit later too, it even goes before that. This was something that was almost in the works before any of this even manifested and came about.
So I have an interesting story. I just want to add to this real quick. So those influences are huge. Mine was Kiss, right? So the demon in Kiss was the best character. Him and I thought that's who I thought. But this is why I thought that. So we had Kiss Alive 2. So this was like late 70s, early 80s, right? I don't remember the exact date, but they were performing that at Great Adventure Six Flags. But we had the album, and I wasn't allowed to look on the inside of that album Just like when I opened the Cheech and Chong album, it had the giant rolling paper. My father would go, close that. So I looked and I saw that there was a guy covered in blood and makeup, right? And he was like, right. And I'm like, wow, I was a kid. I closed that. I was like, this is crazy. Fast forward, I'm at Six Flags, not for Kiss, with my family. It's late. They pick me up. They find themselves with all of us on the concert side of the park, and we have to walk through the concert. So it was kind of, they thought there was a break going on, but Gene was about to do his bass solo. So they pick me up, they walk me and with my whole family by the front of the stage. And it's just as he's like crouching in the front and he spits the blood everywhere. Dude, it was everywhere. And I was being held up, so it splashed me and I screamed bloody murder, right? They were like, you guys can't stay for the show. He's screaming. I left. This guy became my favorite character. For some strange reason, I morphed into a guy that could handle that. And it kind of, I just thought it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Right? Like when you first see Lobo or Wolverine in the comics, you're like, this is the greatest. But when I look back at it, it was the most horrifying thing that could happen to a kid. I was 6 years old when it happened. I was born in 1974. So it's 1980. Right? It is the craziest industry that pushes frequencies and vibrations that lock you into a scenario where you either mantra something that gets yourself into a lower frequency, in other words, singing the hook and everything, or literally as you're listening to it, the sound and vibration that it surrounds you in the room as you bump the music traps you in that. And when you're in that frequency, in that box, you can then be manipulated in so many different ways. So,
I actually have I have an audience question, and I think this is a perfect time to ask it. If you can hand me that spin, it's actually from Spinge's best friend. Why do we still feel so relaxed and at peace with music if it's tuned to do the opposite of that? Is the initial question, and I figured both of you being musicians and with your understanding of frequency is probably the best time to ask.
In my opinion, from a music theory standpoint, if you use certain sequences of notes, in my opinion, whether you pick a certain melody and you play it in a certain key, there's certain sequences of notes that will sound more pleasing, more relaxing to the ear than if you pick this other series of notes as well. In my opinion, I feel personally, at least through my experience, if you use the right melody and you use the right intentions and you understand what you're doing in the creation of a song, you can somewhat counteract that bad 440 hertz frequency. You can. It takes the intelligence to do it. It takes the know-how to do it. I mean, we look at the modes, the scales, the circle of fourths, and the circle of fifths. Okay, and we know that in each scale and each mode has its own key within these circles of fourths and fifths. So if you utilize the notes in a certain way, that's why, at least in my opinion, from a music theory standpoint, that you can still experience relaxation and you can still experience the sense of grounding or peace or calmness from something that's tuned in 440 hertz, because the musicians were intelligent. They maybe had an idea of what they were doing. That's just my thoughts, though.
And songs are still good.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You make a good song, it's a good song, so it kind of overrides that when you're singing along with it because it's all we got. But I tell you right now, if you have a system in your house, like a good system or headphones, go out and if you have a car from like 2012, like to 2016, and put the radio on and see what it sounds like, and see if you don't shut that off immediately or want to put something else on. And as you skip through the channels, you're like, what am I hearing that makes it unpleasant?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can override that. Yes, we could also record in back in that scenario. Now that we have the ability to not pay $500 an hour at a studio, right? It used to be crazy back in the day, right? You get 2 hours in the studio. Oh my God, it's going to cost us. Everybody's got to throw in. Now we could just do that right here. And we can make it sound good. So you could record into that. And when did that change? Because if you listen to Freebird on record, a good record player, right? Don, but like a live version, you'll see the difference. You'll see why they say it's the best song ever. Because it goes. There's a video game that you can kind of play and you got to hit the notes, Guitar Hero or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, when you're playing, you have to actually visually time yourself and see what we're talking about, both of us, as it comes down the screen and hit the note properly, or else it goes and it kind of the crowd goes boo, like if you don't hit the note right. But if you hit it right, boom, everything explodes and goes up. But the song moves in a wave. It doesn't trap sound in a box. When did that start happening? When things went digital, they were able to like make that transfer quietly and say, no, but it's digital quality.
That is, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's a good insight. Sorry.
I actually found something out on this deep dive. There are a few songs that YouTube has actually transposed back to the original frequency. Right? They've slowed them down. There's certain tracks. You can look it up. I'll actually throw all of where I got my information from in the description when we're done here. But like me and Spinja went nuts on this. And like I ended up finding out that there's certain songs that were meant to be in the right frequency and they've been transposed back on YouTube.
Right. Music's supposed to make you spiral out. Like,
yeah.
Or it spirals into you. Like you're like overwhelmed. Oh, this is amazing. Right. It feels so good. That's when the artists know what they're doing. Right. When the artist knows what's going on. And that now there's a lot of people aren't doing it to get famous. Right. Like I'm an older guy. Like I'm doing it to have fun. Like if I'm not having fun, it sucks. Because I went on tour and nobody was having fun but me. And then I was bored. I said, this isn't going to work. I don't fit into this. Now so there's waves of us pushing that forward. And it's not just that we're musicians. We're also what we're known for our shows. Right?
Yeah.
So when you add all that together, how do you go wrong? You can't. We're source. We win. We override the system itself, which is beautiful. Right? So, Steve, they used to put, I don't know how they do it now. It's probably way more out in the open. But in like 2005, 2006, I think, we were like, it was the year Jay-Z was doing Def Jam. Like he became president that year. They literally, it wasn't quite an auditorium. It was small, way smaller than that. It was like a 3-floor building, but you can get so much done in this area. But from the outside, and we were under the trestle out in Queens, it looked like kind of like a crack house. Like you couldn't really see in and you couldn't see what was going on in this building by the train, but it was loaded inside. And they always said, now hindsight 2020, they said they would keep the room where they put the demon in the masters in the north section of the room or whatever, like a certain section of the room, it'd be hidden in plain sight. So it would just be behind some doors. I was working there for 16 weeks. We got signed in there and then they ripped up our contracts after we had some issues there. And I came up during one of their little parties and I watched them do some stuff. So they opened the broom closet, which was a double door. And I was like, wow, it's like a long, thin room in there. It was all purple. It had an altar. It had the upside down cross. It had some goblet liquid and stuff. Now, mind you, I am overjoyed to be signed. We're walking through there like, woohoo, we just finished doing 3 songs. I come out and I said, oh, what are you doing here? Like I walked right up front and then I go, and I wasn't who I am now. And I said, oh, Sister Stabile, if she was here, all of yous are getting detention. I said, who showed you how to do this? Why are you wearing that? And who showed you that? I said, you know what that is, right? And they were just like, you have to leave. And I was like, oh, well, I'm leaving. And they grabbed me and they were like, no, you're leaving. And they were like, woo, Frank's got to go. They threw all of us out. That was the first time. And I knew some of these people personally. And I thought there was something, they were young. I thought there was something not right about them. But I said to them when I went back, I said, somebody taught you that. I don't mean to make it sound like this, but I was like, y'all are dummies. Y'all are nobody people in the background. I'm the rock star. And you do nothing except take time and money away from artists. So I'm watching you do that, going, who showed you that? That's the person I would like to talk to. And they were like, you don't want to talk to them. And then they tried on my brother some weird stuff, like take your clothes off and then put these on. And he was like, nah. And he got into a fight. They kicked all of us out, ripped up our contract, and we kept the 3 songs. And that's how we got popular. The producer came with us, Justin, and he was mad popular. He popped out. He was like, yo, they're gonna gang beat me if you don't get me out of here right now. As soon as you leave, they got me downstairs with the equipment. So we just went back in, took the equipment, and left. We were like, do something, because we were so many of us. So we were able to fight it back. But now we sit and talk, and my brother's like, oh man, I think we dodged a bullet. Like a big one. He's like, that dude was 7 foot tall. He tried to get me to change in front of him and then dance like a girl. He's like, I'm a hip hop rock star. I've been around the world doing this. Like, what are you doing? So he just immediately went to fight the guy. And they were like, that's it, you're done. Dude, I was like, wow, this is crazy.
I probably would have did the same thing, man. I mean, and even kind of, you know, now because you brought it up, just what you were saying before. I mean, when we even look at hip hop music, man, and you know, I know you could probably attest to this, Frank, man. If you look at early hip hop music, it was very positive, was it not? It was about
where I come from, that hip hop, where it was just positive, conscious music, storytelling, good rhymes, fun stuff.
I'm telling you,
I don't know when it got to murder and everything.
Well, there's a story that went around, man, and this is because what you're saying. I mean, if you look at what hip hop music is and what it's become, right? I mean, like you said, if we look at old school hip hop, it's very positive. It's about getting out of the hood. It is about being conscious. You know, it's about, you know, enlightening your life. And then we see this shift, like towards the late 80s, early 90s, and you know, and then we have groups like NWA, you know, that come out, and we have other groups that, you know, Snoop Dogg. Goes off and does his own thing. I mean, that's when Biggie Smalls starts coming into the picture.
It was still fun back then. That was still fun.
It was still fun, man. But now then you look at this now, man. So like this is a good example of weaponized music. You look at these rappers today, they talk about drinking lean, they talk about taking Xanax, they talk about, you know, doing all of these this crazy shit. You know, like getting yourself into trouble. And look at what we see happening to the population, you know, of people, man. Like we have drug addiction at an all-time high. And we know that through that manipulation in that music and those frequencies, like you were talking about, Frank, you know, if you're sitting in your room and you've got it on the system and you got it up and you're bumping it and you hear the vibrations and it locks you into that song about drinking lean, doing Xanax, like, you know, shooting up a something else, dude. And it does. It starts to put that idea. Man, I can't remember when I was growing up, man. They had this song. It was about, even though it was, you know, it's a funny song, 3 6 Mafia sipping on some scissor. And, you know, and then they had freaking Little White, Oxycontin, and all of those songs that came out back then, man. And that's like, to me, because you have to think music, like you were saying, man, it makes us spiral out. It profoundly influences the psyche, profoundly. And, you know, if you looking up to this person, you thinking they're cooler a rapper, and, you know, you see they're fucking got like 10 styrofoam cups fucking stacked to the wazoo, freaking can't even, you know, like form a coherent sentence or anything like that. This is what the message and the manipulation of the frequency that's being put out into people. It's like use drugs, hurt people, like do this, anything that almost is like anything to keep you trapped in that lower frequency.
Right. Somebody had said in the comments about sad songs. Yes, they drag you in. So songs with lyrics that are sad, or any lyric for that matter, can take you on the journey. It's the storytelling. So if it's all sad, I broke up with another one, right? That's great. But we have 1 billion of them. But here we go again, and you get trapped in that loop, right? There's a lot of loops to get trapped in, and it drags you into that. My example is that song Creep. So I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo, right? You sing those lyrics. And then you're like, man, I'm so goth, like nobody understands, bro. But because I'm a piece of trash, bro. That's what the song is meant to do. Make you feel less than. And then they popularize it by putting it on the TV show Lucifer and make him sing it for everyone. And they're all like, oh my God, he has this one thing and he sang Creep and it was so. And everyone feels less. Right? Then you get the Freebird people like, guys, should we go fight that band and make sure that you don't ever make a song like that again? Like, or do we make the greatest thing you've ever heard? And then just fly the ones that are listening off. Yeah. It's just a crazy experience when you start thinking now from that level. Think of all the songs you've ever listened to and where it brought you. And the songs that brought you out of those things. Right? So there's the bad time songs and then the good times roll.
Time songs.
Yeah, right. It's all there.
I literally just spent New Year's with Default. I just happened to know the bass player, and those are some of my good time songs, and it was the best New Year's I think I've had in my entire life.
Yeah, I saw you with the band. Right? You had a great time that night.
Oh yeah. It was crazy. It was literally like Wayne's World. Like I'm backstage and we're just having this intellectual conversation. It was like talking to one of you guys. Yeah. And then this guy comes up beside me. He's like, hey, I'm Jeremy. Can I sit there? And I'm just like from the band. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, and he's like, are you all right? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm trying to act normal. Right? And he just starts dying. And we start
act normal. You gotta totally act normal. I've cheesed out in front of people too while I was on tour. Right? I met characters where I was like, oh, look at this. Right? Where other people that were with me were like, oh, I don't know if I should do this now because this person's here. I'm like, dude, that's LL. You got to come over here. Like, you have to talk to him with me. We're going right now. Go right up on stage. Let's show everybody. But so music has the tendency to take the crowd from one place to another, the whole crowd. So songs that could lift an entire generation, just the way grunge came in and gave us heroin rock, right? And I'm lesser than, oh, woe is me kind of shit. There's empowering stuff that is out now because the grassroots movement started already. It was all us all the whole time. And there's many. And as it's flipping and nobody's paying attention to Hollywood and people are walking away from the Diddy tracks and all this other stuff because they're finding out all their guys are weirdos, right? They're like, oh, they find the beings like us out there across the board. Doesn't matter what genre. It works across. There's someone for everyone. That's the plan, right? And then Operation Music Drop. And then there it is. So we would have our own Woodstock Renaissance in our lifetime that wasn't contrived like Woodstock 2.
I'm with you on that, man. I think it's definitely for sure happening. I mean, we're seeing, even the other side of the weaponization of music. You just brought it up, the whole Diddy incident, man. I mean, look what happens to these artists when they get taken into that big club, when the big club dictates to them that, like, hey, you can be a part of this club, but, and you kind of even brought it up in your story earlier, Frank, we want you to put this dress on and we want you to dance like a girl, or it's like, we want you to come to these parties. Like, come to these parties and, we're going to have a good time. And, I'm going to the baby oil thing too, and all of that shit that he ended up getting caught with as well. But I mean, that's the other side of the weaponization of music. I mean, like you were saying, man, the grassroots people are the ones who are really going to stand out here soon. I think as more of these unveilings start to occur from within the music industry and how corrupt it's been, and more people start to, you know, realize like, man, I'm listening to some really not so great people, not a great frequency, and they're going to start looking for people like you, and they're going to start looking for people like us, because, you know, even in my eyes, we look at how syndicated mainstream music has become. You know, we look at, there's no life in it anymore. It's all the same regurgitated shit over and over again, same chord progression, just maybe in a different key. Same beats per minute, you know, the same, and it's like there's no originality. I saw this happening back in 2006, 2007, a little bit later, maybe like 2008, where I started to see rock get phased out of the mainstream. Like, you know, it really, because you look at rock's an empowering music, even in and of itself. I mean, there's a lot of like metal bands and rock bands, like, you know, I'll even throw out the Parkway Drive song Crush. Thank you, Spinja. You know, Crushed, the Parkway Drive song. If you listen to the lyrics of that song, you can tell the lead singer is awakened. Like, you can tell he's there. Like, you know what I mean? He definitely knows a little bit of what's going on. And like, I saw rock and metal start to get phased out of the mainstream. I started to see all of this original music get phased out of the mainstream. And it was over like this period of years. And then now we're stuck with syndicated pop. I wouldn't even call it hip hop music anymore. I don't even know what the fuck to call it.
That's not hip hop.
I don't even know what
subgenre of musical stuff. Put it over here. I don't understand it. Can you have a conversation with a guy if he starts talking like that?
Nah.
Like lingo was just English back then, with a couple of cool, everyone had their accents or a little bit of slang. But today it's just mumble bumble, non-rhyming.
Exactly.
Very hypnotic. Or whorish. I mean, I will throw that out there.
Definitely, man.
Right. Like it's Baby It's Cold Outside and WAP. Right. So WAP is number one for 16 weeks or some crazy shit. And they're banning Baby It's Cold Outside. But Wet Ass Pussy's great for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Truth, bro.
And it is actually across the board, because we're gonna have a pop in here. Hey, Spin, what do you think of New Country? Let her rip.
It's not country. Shania Twain, okay, this is my opinion, and this does not reflect the participants of this program, but Shania Twain was the beginning of the end of country.
I agree.
And then Billy Ray Cyrus.
Wait, didn't Beyonce win?
Oh, no.
You know what? I stopped following country in like the late 90s. No, I'm done.
When Taylor Swift is top 10 best guitar players.
Nah, she does. What'd you say, Spidja?
It's all screechy little girls. That's what country turned into. Thank you, Shania.
Well, it's like, dude, real country to me is like Willie Nelson, Conway Twitty.
Yeah.
You know, like Loretta Lynn, like stuff like that. That's real country to me, man. But it is like you hit the point hard, Spinja. It is. Everything's become syndicated, lifeless, and just monotonous. And I'll leave it at that.
So, and here's the hard part now. So we have to make it clear that, okay, not only we up against these nonsense artists that all just keep feeding each other back into the grind, right, while grinding up and spitting everyone else out. This industry, as the grinder itself, is about to just tip over and walk away. But we're up against things like Spotify, who then goes, oh, you want relevance, making the labels pull those crappy artists back. Oh, there's P. Diddy again at number one, Eminem number two, this guy, whatever. And the top 10, and you go, wait a second, some of those, who are those guys? I never heard of some of these guys in here. And you find out they're AI made by Spotify, who's pulling from our material to put that together, And then you never see these people. And Spotify's like, listen, our top artists are these guys. And then they take the P. Diddy characters and they go like this. And now we've all been there, though. I'm going to speak for others that don't get a chance to speak. They've been there. They have way better songs with way more listeners and streams and downloads. And then you treat them you give them no bump. There's no bump. Maybe you'll catch a little bit something here or there, but not much. So now it makes it like, oh, here's a chance because you could stream your music, but now the AI is going to be the artist that gets on the charts with you. And that is built off the backs of real artists who are creating real music and then just pulling little pieces from everyone. Right? The sick part is I've heard of the AI calling for copyright against you after pulling stuff and creating its own song, air quotes. So, but it sounds like yours. And then it goes after you for sounding like it. And you get the strike.
It's like
what?
It's like dead internet theory for musicians almost, man, because dead internet theory is the theory.
It's just you and me and all robots.
Exactly, man. And that's what's it is weaponized against people like us. That system is definitely weaponized against people like us because they are trying to snuff out originality and creativity, because originality and creativity is thought-provoking. They can't have anything that's thought-provoking anymore. We can't. No. We can't have that. We have to have everybody just continue to stay where they're at. That's where they want them. And, I mean, it even, not even just with music, man, it even goes into the movie industry. I swear to God, if I see another Joker revamp, I'm just going to I'm going to just be like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here, man? Like, come on. I'm surprised it hasn't become more obvious.
We can't create one new thing.
I know.
Or are we going to have Transformers 8, Fast 25, and then, we're going to redo Friday the 13th. It's just like, dude, let it go.
Let it go.
We want new, 100% creative, but you can't do that because of who's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what happens.
They're re-airing Golden Girls for fuck's sakes.
What would you say, Don? Say it one more
They're
time.
They're remaking Golden Girls. Like,
oh my God, dude.
Who the hell asked you to do that?
What's her name? Betty White's probably rolling in her grave just at the thought of that, dude.
Is she dead? She was kind of vampiric for a while.
She did, dude. I don't know. That's the thing with these people, these famous people. If they're, in my eyes, if something's piloting them, yeah, the body goes, but that thing still continues on. Like,
for sure.
Yeah,
I've seen soul switches. I've seen people beat out at birth, like where a creator being just gives up on wanting to fight its way in over something demonic or something being forced. It's usually force. It's like technology would push that forth, but there's so many variations and all that stuff's going on at the same time. And you're like, oh, right. So you don't know who's running the vessel after a while. A soul could walk out and then just be run, or it could be pushed to the back and be aware of it, but can't do nothing about it. Are they cloning? Like I have a crazy story that has nothing to do with music, but I keep showing up at night in my dreams in the cloning factories. I don't understand. Like I keep there's a version of me there. I think I keep waking up, but now I'm staying in the dreams and I see what they're doing. And I'm like, wow, this guy's a clone of me living there, doing all this stuff. Part of a whole thing going on. So how do we know they're not pumping out every celebrity? How do we know they're not charging them like $1 million or $2 million a piece for a clone? Like in Multiplicity with the guy that played Batman, Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Right. And the fifth clone was like a weirdo. He was like, hello. Right. Because it was like cop. The first one was really smart, and the second one liked to cook and clean, and each one guy was like straight, just went to work, right? So they were all different, but when you got to the last one, he became super dumb.
Exactly.
Right. So if they do anything like that and put that in front of you, and then put a musician with a musician, be for sure you're going to find something in the music that now, if you look at it, is going to be awkward.
Oh, 100%. 100%. One of the wait, were you going to say, Frank? Sorry.
I was going to ask you, during one of your ceremonies, have you ever listened to a favorite artist and had to turn it off?
Oh, 100%. 100%, man. And there have been a few times where a favorite artist of mine had caused the experience to start going south. And one of the, and believe it or not, so I'm a fan of this guy. He does acid jazz. His name is Mark Farina, and he actually has albums labeled Mushroom Jazz, and it's awesome shit. I mean, think of like lo-fi old school hip hop with some jazz overtones. Like that's what, it's definitely beast.
I have a lo-fi channel I listen to with hip hop jazz, and it just plays some cool stuff. Yeah.
Oh, it's so awesome, man. It's amazing to have a ceremony too. It's very laid back, like you can get into the vibe and all that. But like there was one of his albums, it was I forgot which volume it was. I was listening to one time, and I just remember like I felt this feeling start to like overtake me. And I was like, this isn't good. I was like, this is not a great feeling. And I remember something inside of me was like, it's the song. Turn off the song. And I was like, and I remember I turned it off and I paused it, and then the feeling started to subside. It was like this very
that's the trap.
It was hard to describe. And I was like, okay. And then I turned it back on just to like see if this, I was really experiencing this. And yes, as soon as I turned it back on, that feeling started to build back up again. And then I immediately just turned off the TV, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go down to the meditation room and I'm going to hang out there. But, it's what you were saying about the cloning real quick though, Frank. I mean, I 100% agree with what you're saying, because we look at the military industrial complex, and we know that we could speculate that the military industrial complex is, 30 to 40 years at least ahead of the civilian technology based on what they're building. And so you got to think, Dolly the sheep was cloned in 1996, right? And that's probably just the one they made public. We're gonna look at it like that way. And then you had the whole thing with the Raelians, the Raelian cult that was trying to legalize human cloning too. So I think that is I just wanted to say that you could be definitely onto something with that for sure. And as far as like frequencies in the music even affecting us in a ceremonial context as well, like I mean that's happened to me multiple times. And Don, didn't you say that has happened to you before as well?
Oh yeah, I've definitely had a bad trip because of music.
Yeah,
it definitely makes sense, and this is the nerdy bit where Spinja really helped me out, because like most people know, she was deep diving before I gave a shit, right? So when she found out this was about music and frequency, she was like, ding, and keener, and helped me find some amazing stuff. So I'm going to go a little nerd here and just throw this down, because like she put some effort into it, and what she found I had to message you about it, Stephen, because it just kind of blew my mind. It actually, when I get to the end of this, it actually relates to the frequency fence that everybody talks about. Awesome. So kind of a spoiler. So in 1953, the Nazi Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, ordered all tuning forks be changed from 432 to 440. And a worldwide agreement was signed. I'm going to stop there. The propaganda minister for Nazi Germany brokered a deal with the entire world to change tuning forks. Ordered it.
Hydra.
Right?
They infiltrated everything, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Everything.
So
those sounds would knock their tech off. I've seen beings using tech or mind, like light mind control, to make you think you're looking at whatever. You hit them with the proper tuning fork, just out in the open, or say somebody brings out a guitar and just goes up on the street corner and just strums the perfect strum. It would just knock that out. Even if it was
100%.
for a moment, you'd be like, what? Wherever the sound would envelop you, the effect of the vibration, naturally, the closer, the stronger, the further back, the weaker, but more wide spread, especially with acoustics.
Frank, isn't that why they got rid of the bells?
Yeah.
That's exactly why they got rid of all of the bells.
Pipe organs too.
Pipe organs too, yes.
Yeah. So here's where this gets even crazier. Is Spinja found this after we found that. What it was actually called is the Geneva Frequency Plan of 1953. It was an international treaty aimed at standardizing the allocation of radio frequencies for broadcasting and all other communication purposes. It was intended to minimize interference and facilitate international radio communication. So that's even all the radio waves went to 440 hertz. Well, that's where this gets kind of interesting. The resonant frequency of Earth is 8 hertz, right? 432. When you go to 440, it goes to 8.25, which is agitating. And it actually literally takes you out of sync with the rest of the world, right? Because you've gone that 8.25 at 440 instead of 432, right? So now figure out that we're in the ionosphere constantly being beamed with radio waves at 440 and since the 50s, putting everybody out of alignment with the planet that we live on.
Yes.
Because they're beaming 440 at everybody all the time.
That's how you slow evolution down.
Exactly. But this has been going on since the 50s. That's why society has shifted so much since the 50s. Because we're just in it.
That's the thing. That Don, we were shifting. And that's when that whole music at Woodstock Revolution started to rev up. Artists became a little bit different. They started experimenting, and they were like, we have to control this narrative immediately. On top of they've had already removed the bells and the frequencies and this and that, right? And it's just like a clamp down, boom, 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 boom. But the Earth's still spinning, emitting the proper frequency. So that's the net. It's like it won't stop evolution, but when we hit the net, it just slows us down. As we keep walking, it's just a much slower walk. Sometimes you stop for a moment, and then sometimes you get a little slack and you go a little further. However, that's going to be completely turned.
100%, man. And a little bit, it's slightly on topic, but it wasn't just the frequencies of music and radio. I mean, one of the nastiest frequencies that we have right now is the 60 hertz AC current that is emitted to. I mean, that right there is, I believe, has an effect in stopping or putting a net through our evolution as well. I mean, the 60 cycle AC current is just very nasty. It's very bad. If you look at the cymoglyphs that 60 hertz even makes too, they're not pleasant cymoglyphs. For those of you who don't know what cymatics are, it's visible sound. And this is a good way that we can actually look at these different frequencies and look at the imagery that they produce. And we can see these different changes of imagery from each different pitch and frequency. Don, if you don't mind, can I bring up that video real quick? Yeah. Hold on.
This is going to be awesome.
Oh, you're gonna love this, Frank, man. It's gonna blow your mind. Let me pull it up real quick. Let me mute that for just
shout
a
outs
second.
to everyone in the chat, by the way.
Yeah, shout outs to everybody in the
positive
chat.
Vibes
dude.
to everyone.
All right, so this is
probably the most live viewers I've ever had.
Dude, I love this, man. So check this out. I'm going to share this, and you guys check this out, because this is what happens when you play sound waves through a medium, whether it be a non-Newtonian liquid, or which is something like cornstarch and water, or you can use sand. You can use different mediums, and this video is going to show. I'm going to make it full screen too, so everybody can see. So.
The film you're about to see has no characters. If you spare a little of your imagination, it is a film to describe to you the effect of cymatic frequencies on matter.
So pay attention to the geometry this makes.
You could create sigils with the sound.
Indeed.
I didn't realize that.
So you can, many different patterns were formed. Now look at this.
That's how the AI is doing it.
And so you can see that these sound waves, they have just like this profound effect on the matter that they hit. And you got to think, you look at us when we get bombarded. Low frequency. This is what we're into. This is the effect that it has on us. So, I'm noticing geometry on the plate, which has its own geometric figure. And so I'll send you the link to this video, Don, in case everybody wants to check it out. I'll go ahead and I'll swing it to you in the private chat real quick, Don, so you can add it in there. But this is a good example, what we've been talking about all night. These different frequencies, they produce this different geometry, and kind of how I put it is we emit our own frequency. We emit our own geometry too. We have our own vibrational way about us. And when we're bombarded with these lower frequencies, like from that creates this not so great geometry, it's not very detail oriented when you look at it. I mean, you can look at certain things like 40 hertz, 60 hertz, just for example. You can look up cymoglyphs everywhere online. They're available to you. And you can see how this geometry, you look at these pitches, you look at 432 hertz. Actually, let me bring that up real quick, if you don't mind, Don. Just this quick photo of what we're looking at here. And you can see the difference, and this is what I'm talking about here. So let me bring this up real quick. I'm not going to play the video. It's just a really good photo of it. But you can see the difference right there between 432 hertz and 440 hertz. These are the cymoglyphs of the two different frequencies. And you look at 440 hertz, it's murky. It's not super clear. It's like almost like a faded out frequency. But then you go over to 432 hertz and you see this awesome, like almost crown chakra pattern start to occur from the cymoglyph of this frequency. So this is an essence of what we're being bombarded with. And I think this is a good visual reference so people can get like an idea of how this kind of works, how they do weaponize the music.
One looks like a headache. One looks like the sun.
Exactly, man.
Right.
And yeah, man. But I wanted to show you that too, especially Frank. It sounds like it definitely put a light bulb up there.
So check this out. So here, yes, I'm having like a massive one though. So the sun emits the ohm, just the sound. That ohm is what's like the note that's played, creating that image, and then the image is held there by that sound. In the video, the guy's changing the sound because he's playing different notes and stuff. But if you just had the one note, that's what's holding us here together, right? But I've had recent encounters where so the demonics would ask for help against the AI. Crazy, right? So what they were showing me was I'm not going to get into the whole experience, but when I said just show me, and then they showed me reptilians and the AI, and like the AI they were using, but like the AI god, that the one that nobody likes, right? The one that's not from here and everything. That one was like, it had like a Stargate, like just like in the movies, it was like a dial. And then it was just moving it as the demons were closing it. Light beings would close the portal, and then, and I'm like, how are those symbols spinning and then creating that other image? Now from watching that, the AI is using tones. Like it knows the sigil, which means it could just open the portal. Okay, so it opens the portal, and the demonics are like, we're being forced out, but they all know. And it's just so weird standing up for them. The time for them is over, and they know, so they're like heading back. They get transmuted, or you're out. And they go back to the pit, whatever you want to call it. You open a hole to the pit and pull one out. They're like, dude, the frequency shifted. We can't be out here with all this light. We got to go back inside. It's like the sun's out to a vampire. They got to go inside. But the AI was opening, and I'm going to be on, guys, it looked just like that video.
Oh, wow.
Like the symbols on the circular pad that they were using, which was a portal Stargate, just kept lighting up. And I was trying to keep up with it, and I'm like, I should just pull the plug on this thing and smash everybody in the face. And they're like, it's the other guy, it's the AI. And I was like seeing the tentacles do it. Now I know it was it figured out the notes. So it's just playing them because its time is up. So it's like as much damage as I can do from this side. Even if it comes out on the board as a robot, and it's like, I'm going to get everybody. Nah, there's only one of you. You ain't getting nothing yet. They're almost there. Oh, right? If they activate the crowd of robots, then maybe. But I don't think so.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because it could even be cymatics could be even considered a higher form of language, or like almost like a higher number system of some kind too. So it's interesting that you say that, and how your experience correlated with that. It makes a world of sense, especially when we're talking about this, you know, this higher dimensional nature of how these things work. I mean, we know they use frequency. That's the biggest thing. That's one of the ultimate tactics.
You would understand this because you're your own shaman.
Thank you.
The symbols on the pyramid walls, right? I ate mushrooms once and went there, heavy dosed, and the symbols that were just circles and designs started moving and spinning. And I said, what is that? And they're like, well, if you eat mushrooms, we'll show it to you. If you eat a little more, you could go in there. If you eat a little more than that, you are it. Right. So I was like, but no, the symbols are unlocking the story. They were like the story and the information, like you're spinning a CD on a disc, but you have to access it with your consciousness. And I'm like, but it spins and moves like what you're saying, like what we just watched.
Mm-hmm.
So is that it? Is it like,
I would potentially say yes. And the reason why I would say yes is because, you know, we look at, I mean, some of those geometric patterns that you were witnessing there also as well. I mean, we've seen those in our experiences, right? Especially in our ceremonies, we see this, the grid almost, and we can see the veil. And I think personally that this is potentially was at a time, maybe in the early days of the antiquity, a form of technology itself.
Yes.
And it definitely was. I mean, a really good, I mean, we look at these stone circles in South Africa that Michael Tellinger talks about. And those stones were resonance stones. And when you would hit them, they would basically hum a pitch. And what would happen too is it would cause all of the other stones in the stone circles to hum this pitch. And we look at things also too, like the pyramids. We look at all of these great feats, these great megaliths, and who's to say that there wasn't some kind of frequency technology involved? So that's really where I think we're getting back to that point, because know me, Frank, and you know me, Don. I call this the great remembering. And it's the remembering, because all of this is already within us. We got this ancestral memory of our ancestors of antiquity. All of that information is encoded not just in our consciousness, but the bodies we're in. And this is what we're doing. I think we're remembering our way back to that. And I think that's what you experienced, and at least from what I'm hearing, what you experienced in that vision that you had. This was maybe some kind of higher form of that technology that they were using to open and close this door. So that's why I love that video so much. I can't praise it enough, because it literally gives you a visual description of how these frequencies manifest, how they work, how they sync with the reality around them. And yes, I do think it was a form of technology. Potentially Atlantis used it. It very well could have been there also. Who knows?
I want to take it a big step further and say, now we saw that. What if they shrink that and put it in a vibration that can be launched at you and just instantly cause massive issues, up to unaliving yourself and just being flat out knocked out of your body by the vibration? Right?
Absolutely.
All they would have to do is hold the note.
I'm actually going to ask about that. With what we just saw, that kind of proves that frequency can change the molecular construct of its surroundings. So given the right frequency, being that we have a resonant frequency, you could dissolve a human if you found the right pitch.
Yeah.
Right?
You would technically be able to do anything.
100%.
Man, right? You would just be able to affect things at the deepest point and just bring it apart.
Well, it's like a good example for what Don said too. I mean, you look at when there's when you have a high pitch and glass breaks. That is because that pitch matched the resonance frequency of the pitch of that glass. Those two frequencies hit the same tone, same pitch, and that's what causes that glass to break. And you've even seen it with bass, in cars and people who have subwoofers. The freaking frequency of that pitch, dude. It makes the windows freaking wave, dude. It turns glass into liquid. Yeah, it turns glass into liquid, man. So this good example of what you were saying, Don, for sure.
And yeah, sorry, I just lost my place there.
No,
we were saying, this goes into that as well. When they took the bells and the organs out, that's the same idea, because it can affect your molecular structure. The bells and the organs were, for people that don't know, were healing instruments. You could ring that bell at a certain frequency and nobody in town would be sick. It was after World War II that they took all this stuff out. You used to go to a cathedral.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah. You're 100%. It's like you just change the frequency and send it out, and no demon can be there all the way up to nothing nasty, nothing from the lower nasty levels. So the sound just resonates through the background and raises the whole place up. Right.
Speaking of cathedrals too, Don, I think you know, if you don't mind, let me just pull up this one last thing. Let me get the image pulled up here. So I'll go ahead and so you know how they said I think there was a double whammy in the cathedrals, you guys, and the reason I did an episode on this, and I think you guys will appreciate this. So,
I watched it.
yeah, no, you're about yeah. I'm gonna bring so this is cruciform, right? So a lot of these cathedrals that used to heal people, like through the resonance frequencies, because you're right, you know, you go to these old Gothic cathedrals and like you go sitting there for 15 minutes with the organ playing, or you sitting there for 15 minutes with the bell ringing, and I still got to find the video. There was a guy who did it, and he was asking people how they felt when they got out, and they're like, "Man, I feel like completely different. Like I feel awesome." And I think it was a combination of the frequencies in. Yep, there we go, Della Kennedy. Thank you, exactly. So, but you look at the shape. So this is a 4-dimension. It's a 3-dimensional crucifix, right? That actually comes from a tesseract, which is a 4-dimensional square. So if you unfold the tesseract, you get a 3-dimensional crucifix. So I think, man, it had something to do with the geometry of these buildings too. You know, you have like kind of a double whammy here. And you have the sacred geometry this building is built in, vibrating at its resonance frequency, depending on the material. And you look at the materials, a lot of these buildings were built, you know, a lot of these megaliths, these churches and cathedrals were built out of these semiconductive materials. So they can conduct, you know, this frequency waves, things like that. And then you add a bell and a pipe organ in there, you know, right, in this cathedral, you're getting like almost a triple whammy at that point. I mean, it's just basically turns into this sacred geometry resonance chamber.
You could clear your body, you could clear your mind, you can clear the way for more soul by shaking free of the frequencies that we live in daily and go sit in the church, what it's really meant for, not to listen to some guy talk, but to have the organ player smash or the bells go, just so it resonates you up. It's like an instant, you don't even purge it out. Maybe you just cry, maybe you just get on your knees, and maybe that's where all that comes from. And they turned it into more of a strict, and we all know what it is now. I don't have to explain it. But what it was could have been more of like a let out, an explosion of letting it out, like, oh, and then feeling like the best ever, but your molecules are rearranging.
Oh, 100%. 100%, man.
And it's actually happening.
You know what's really cool about it too, Frank? So there's actually evidence that there in a lot of these old Gothic cathedrals, there was entheogenic ceremonies in them. Oh, dude, dude, could you imagine being in a resonance chamber, triple whammy, and being?
I don't even know where we would go.
I don't know either, bro. We would go somewhere.
And actually, further to the whole cathedral thing is, if you look at the windows of a cathedral, they actually have the same type of cymatic patterns, and that's the way the light would filter in and heal you as well, right? It was literally light and sound frequencies were your healing chamber. That's what a cathedral was.
100%, man. And you're right. If you can even, so we have a cathedral in Denver that has cymoglyphs on the outside of it too. I mean, because, you know, you were looking at that plate in that video and you saw some of these designs the sand was forming. Go check out some of the older churches, you know, go take a look around. And even if they have bells and they're disabled or whatever, but you'll notice, you'll see cymoglyphs, like Don was saying, in the windows, on the walls, like sometimes even on the ceiling. If you look at the ceiling in this way, especially in a round church, you know, you'll see a cymoglyph in the ceiling. So
I didn't believe this video I watched many years ago, right before the ayahuasca thing happened. And the video said, if all the churches have this Saturn imagery right there built on it, like in the old stone and stuff. I'm telling you, most of the churches have it, and this is what it means. So I was like, yeah, right, whatever. So I went for this long walk. There's this giant church I used to walk around, went right up to the front. The sign has been there. It's been in the rock the whole time. The exact thing the guy showed in the video was right on the wall. And I was like, wow, that's carved in stone. That's hundreds of years old. Now that stuff is sacred geometry. Sacred geometry holds information like on a disc. or like on anything else that holds information, us even. So when we activate the symbols and the signs, you get whatever it activates, like whatever pathway that is, almost like you're connecting to some superconductor, and then the next section of the highway, it like clicks and switches into a different design, and you just, so it can suit whatever it is, whatever path is your energy is desired to be on or channeled through. Or they always look like computer circuits to me. That's why. Like if you
100%.
cut the cable and looked at it, I'm like, why does that look so familiar? And I go right into it, and I'm like, oh, that's what that one does. Oh, that's what that one does.
Yeah.
And some of it you just look at and you're like, and you remember stuff. Or it activates the other stuff for you to see. Yeah. What was the movie? They just did I watched Wrath of the Titans, and the guy ran his fingers over the rocks of Tartarus to get in. And he's like, how are you going to get in there, old man? He goes, I built the place. And he touches it and moves a few rocks, and then it goes, and then it just starts immediately closing. And I was like, wow, look at that. Like playing the piano and a little Rubik's Cube, but you got to rub your DNA on the rock to activate it. But you got to do it like this or it doesn't work. Lord of the Rings, right? When they do it over the thing before the octopus attacks them. He's like, how do we get in the door? The door won't open. And they had to run their hand over it and then say friend in Elvish or something to get the door to even work.
And we, even relating to that too, man, maybe that word, because we look at the Sanskrit and the Hebrew language, and they have some of the most beautifully intricate cymoglyphs to see. I mean, you look at the patterns that these certain words create in both Sanskrit and Hebrew, and they're absolutely beautiful. Maybe what that was referencing to in the movie is maybe when they said that word, it was a certain cymoglyph that could have potentially interacted with this door, with this, wall or whatever it is. I'm beginning to think that's where a lot of that could potentially come from, because, we see those movies where they go open sesame, and then, there's no technology. Sorry about that.
His mic.
Yes. Yep. Sorry. There's no technology or anything like that. And they just go open sesame and the door opens. So is it possible that there's potentially a old school kind of technology, maybe not old school, maybe something we're just not familiar with, that acts kind of like the I guess you could say is the cymoglyph acts like an actuator, because what an actuator does is it transfers energy into movement, right? So the cymoglyph itself is the actuator that transfers the memory into this movement. So I think that the energy in the movement, I think that could be it, man. Who knows?
All right, now we're gonna take what you just said and apply it live time, but kind of backwardsy. So a bunch of people I knew went to Egypt. They were going to the pyramids, but 5 times a day there was call to prayer. So where they were, all it was, as they explained, was very shitty speakers and microphones with the that kind of frequency. The language is that way, very harsh. And 5 times a day for a long period of time. So it basically disrupts everything, because everything has to stop as well, to throw everyone into the resonant frequency sound that's coming out all day, just being broadcast in different places. You're like, wow, this is blowing my mind to have to deal with that kind of without being rude to somebody's prayer moment. But then you watch Dune, and they have characters that are just like that. And they're out in the desert, and they're training armies, and the supervisory characters of the villains, the generals, had witches or sorcerers that would broadcast, and then dudes would fight to the death in front of them while that's being broadcast at everyone.
That's so interesting, man. Well, you kind of even, that guttural throat, we look at the monks when they chant, right? And they do the same thing. They use that guttural, like frequency, and also too in ceremonial magic rituals when you are calling out the name of God or calling out the name of angels, it's in a very similar tone. So maybe there's like this, maybe this even predates, like, potentially even history as we know it, or, because I've already done away with what I know as history at this
Maybe
point.
light language and the reverse
Yeah,
run sine cosine with each other, and then just shifting the frequency from run dun 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 to om
exactly.
and they just ride alongside. So you could do either one if you want, and it'll bring that in, and then that's how it
Exactly.
affects you.
I think so, man, and like this could very well be, because one thing that I've learned, because in my Kundalini journey too, is that what we also don't think of tech could very well also be a form of tech in a different format too. So like that's you're onto something with that, man. And
Well, we're in a hologram.
Exactly.
And sound and resonant frequency seems to hold it together, right? I had an incident not long ago, 3 years ago, where dudes walked into my home with an ET, right? And I said, yo, they used some kind of equipment. I saw it on the guy, and he like switched it off when he came in the room. And I said, oh, you can't even do that. Like, I was making fun of him because I was about to get my ass beat. And a whole situation happened. But just recently, the patent came out for how to wear the belt and have it change your resonant frequency so you could walk through a wall. That the military's had this since the 50s. And I'm like, they were using that they were doing it to everyone's home. I just happened to be able to see them because you walked into a guy's house while he was constantly having ceremonies and stuff. Like, what did you expect?
Dude, I'm telling you, man. Well, it's got to be one of the ways that I swear, it's like they've harnessed like a different octave of the third density, and it's like almost it's almost like they hide there. That's the best way to describe it. Is like maybe it has to do with because we look at it in octaves when it comes to densities. You have 3D, and we have 12 octaves until we potentially get to fourth density. It's very possible that they know a cymoglyph, or it's programmed into that kind of tech to where, he hopped on and he was with the guy and he tried to fade out. But because you're conscious and you're aware, you
I
ended
saw
up
them walk in, and then they turned it off. And I said, oh, that's technology, just like that. And they were like, oh, and I saw the ET and I was like, oh, shit. And then I got an ass whooping that night. But I was like, yo, these are like, I even said it too. I said, these are guys using tech. I seen reptilians using tech, and I've also seen them using, and I've seen others use like a mind thing. Very strong, where they could even like poke you in the eye and just make you disrupt the whole thing. Whatever magic you're doing or whatever niceness you're appreciating and loving, and boop. Oh, why would you do such a thing? And they're like, because we hate you. And I'm like, whoa, you got guys out there that just straight hate. And they're like, yeah, everything. Ta-da. And I'm like, oh, okay, you got to be careful out there. I learned the hard way. But
100%, man. 100%. And you notice, and you notice the ones that are trying to do it to you, because I'm sure a lot of you have had this situation. You'll be out somewhere, and you'll be either with people or without, and you'll catch somebody who's been staring at you for like a very long period of time. And I actually had two friends who had this incident, and this person ended up following them. And it ended up following them into, I guess, this area that they were in. It was like this downtown back alleys and streets, and they kept showing up, and they were like looking directly into their eyes. So that's a good key indicator too, that something could be, it is, because that's one thing both you and I have seen, and Don has experienced himself, is we do have things posing as human beings that are not. So
I asked Source that when I was there. I said, wow, there's a lot of us. And he was like, yeah, at the time he was like 4 billion something. And I said, what's everything else? What is that? What is that stuff? And he was like, robots, clones, ETs wearing flesh suits. I mean, he broke it down for me, and I looked. At the time, it was like a 20% versus 80%. But somehow over time, people left the planet, and more of that pulled in. More NPCs, more visitors that aren't supposed to be here, acting like humans. Some of them know, and some of them don't. Right? The amnesia is in some of them, and then some of them don't have the amnesia. They know exactly what they're doing. They're just wearing the suit. They would say in hip hop, "You're wearing the Gucci Mane tonight." It's like, no, I don't want to put that on. It's like, no, you're going to put it on and you're going to like it. And it's like, no, I don't want to be Gucci Mane. I'm not wearing the skin suit. Yeah, you wearing it tonight, kid. That's what you get for not checking in.
It's
like,
wild, man.
Yeah,
it's absolutely wild, man. And oh yeah, too, man. And I did an experiment with the bells, and they do work. I had small bells, but they do work. The small ones just irritate them. You can tell, like you can see it, like you'll have it, and you're just like, just diggling it, and you can just see they're like, they just get like this. They get all very flustered, and they get all very frustrated. And I actually had a friend, because she's dealing with a messed up situation that sounds very otherworldly. So I was like, here's an idea. Like, go take a bell with you next time you go there. And dude, she was literally manipulating these people with a bell. It was quite bizarre. So yeah, definitely.
I can see pushing consciousness, because I see myself when I do it, and when it's done to me. If you had a bell or a resonating object, and we're able to bong and send it like forward, and you send your thought and intention forward, it would be like circular, however the bell hits you with the sound, wong, 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 with a straight attached to it, energetic. So you would get in there extra intensely. So if you're using it for good, it might work great for manifestation, healing, like immediate healing, that kind of stuff. And if you were doing it on the bed, it could be everything up to death.
100%
with the right frequency.
I mean, you look at, what is it? Isn't it called Havana syndrome? Like when you look at Havana syndrome, these people theorize that that's a frequency attack of some kind, because Havana syndrome was just, let me look it up real quick, but I know Havana syndrome was an incident. People still suffer from it. It basically, people just start dropping out of nowhere in this immense pain. And usually it happens to government officials. So here we go. Havana syndrome. Reported symptoms include a sudden onset associated with the perceived localized loud sound, followed by chronic symptoms that lasted for months, such as balance, dizziness, cognitive problems, insomnia, and headaches. So this, a lot of the times that this happens, it usually happens to government officials. They'll hear this loud noise, this loud pitch, this loud frequency, and they end up dropping. Like, is there in pain, like from hearing this loud frequency? So maybe something like this has already been developed, man. Like, you think of,
I can't see why that wouldn't be developed.
Exactly. I mean, you even just what we talked about. I think when you hear that loud, that screams frequency weapon to me. You hear this loud pitch, and then you drop with all of these illness symptoms. Definitely a frequency weapon, at least in my opinion.
One of my ayahuasca trips, my aura had like they looked like cables attached to the aura, and this cable was sickness. This one was like whatever addiction. This one was like shitty attitude, and it was all transferring back and forth. And I remember disconnecting the one first that said sickness, and I said, "You can connect to sickness," and they were like, "Yeah, you just disconnected from it." And I'm like, "I feel different." And then I started disconnecting, and they're like, "They're going to try to reconnect that to you." So as soon as I took them off, hands came up, boom, boom, boom. And then eventually they slid off. Right. And I'm like, so I'm connecting or allowing a connection to a frequency, that's no bueno. That's basically what you're telling me. And they're like, yep, everything is or isn't. They're like, you're in everything. So it's pleasure and pain all the way. So it's on you how you decide to choose to do whatever it is you're looking to do. So I'm like, oh, interesting. That's why they say sometimes we don't look at it as good and evil, right? Because they're viewing it like you can do this or you can do that. It's just like a cause and effect kind of thing from the higher level. And you're like, yeah, but when you're there and someone eats your dog, it's bad. Right. And they're like, we get it. But you learn that, and then you come up here and it's not really like that. You look at how the whole thing just works.
It is, man. It's like, well, it is. It's operating off the premise of free will. It is. Like, even though that person might not be conscious or aware, they're using their free will to tap into that frequency. That's their own choice, their own decision. And so that's how it manages to happen.
Yeah, we allow it, right?
Yep,
that's
exactly
how this works. We let it go down.
Yep.
And pretend like, no, it wasn't me. Oh God, oh, it wasn't me.
Victim mentality. That's victim mentality, bro. Like, dude, and another thing, man, apparently, according to my guest I had on Wednesday, victim mentality will make you sick and attract parasites. So get rid of the victim mentality, everybody. That's not
right away. Yeah. I try to catch myself all the time with that.
Something I've been kind of theorizing. Do you guys think like controlling your emotional frequency can actually help protect us from the crap that we're constantly inundated with, that wants us to feel negative, that wants us to like do all this crazy shit and feel bad about ourselves? Like, do you think the emotional frequency we carry and project can actually protect us from what's being shot at us?
Oh, 100%. 100%, man. You know, and one of the things that I personally feel is I feel our conscious collective, all of us who are in our great remembering at this point in time, we do have energetic allies. Like, we do. We experience some of what's completely going on because we do have that protection. But if through our own free will, through whatever means, even if it's a decision that would lead to something like that, we can, through our own free will, negate our protection and get things to happen to us. And that's kind of the best way I can describe it. Also, too, I personally feel a great measure of protection is your frequency work and your energy work. Like, elevating your, training your subtle body, internal alchemy, elevating your frequency from within. I do think that this is a very good way to have protection from what's going on too. And I've noticed too, since I've embarked on that and I've been doing my Kundalini Kriyas and really doing internal alchemy and working on that it's almost as if, like, I guess the best way to describe it is, Frank can maybe relate to this. Like, how sometimes when you come back from an experience, like, you have a foot in and a foot out, right? And, you're kind of half there, half not for a little bit. And then sometimes, like for a couple weeks, you're like, man, I can remember this clarity. And then sometimes that third density haze will just kind of come back on. But with this working on your subtle body and doing that internal alchemy and elevating your frequency that way, you'll have that clarity permanently. It almost dissipates the third density haze. So like you can be more aware and discerning of things in that state as well. So I think that's also a great, yes, definitely projecting a frequency of love, joy, abundance, and things like that can most certainly protect us. And, listening to high frequency music like Fank, 432 Hertz artists, things like that, definitely can protect us, man. And, also too, doing that inner work, man, shifting your frequency from within, your internal alchemy, transmuting that darkness within you and using it for light purposes. If you get used to doing that, when something dark comes your way, as Frank says too, you transmute that shit, dude. You're just like, you're like, all right, I already got this. I already know what I'm doing. I've done this with myself. I've done this with my own darkness. So any other kind of darkness that comes my way, I can just transmute it. And that's basically what I feel is a good measure of protection for yourself. Living in that higher frequency, incorporating it into your being, and doing your healing and your internal alchemy to get a complete package.
Yes. And by doing that, you're reinforcing the energy structures in and around you. And mind you, you are the energy master. This is what you came here to actually master, is energy, right? So you're the antenna, and as you practice this, you would be able to hold up and overtake things like frequencies that would normally harm you. You can literally, even with it on, have it no effect on you, right? Like the song Happy, I used to have to turn off. Now I could march through it. I don't even pay attention to it. I like the bubble goes and it just lifts, even if I have to sit in the room with that. It's like an automatic thing. So I would think if somebody attacked you energetically, if you were grounded, you would be able to repel that, pull it in and discharge it, send it back, right? Transmute it to something else and create something different with it, because you've been doing the work. You're like jumping out of it. You're too high up. So they were telling me, curses and spells no longer work on like me. People, like, they were showing it to me and I'm like, why not? And they're like, you're too high. That's like for down there. Like they cast spells because they're children. And you're like, oh snap. And they will huddle together and you see them casting their spells at you, and they just kind of come up and fall short. And if you walk near them, it just falls before it gets to you. You could even take that and turn it into something beautiful and hand it back. And they'll be like, ew. I'll be like, dude, that's light. What do you mean, ew? Right? Have a beautiful day. And they're like, ah.
I know, man. It's like, oh, dude, it's especially when you bring the divine nature into it, man. And dang, Lexi, holy crap! Yeah. All right, hell yeah. But no, exactly.
Shout out
man.
to Lexi. I love you.
I know, dude. That's some true healing right there, bro, for sure.
Yeah.
And like,
we fought a demon together.
Dude, I'm telling you, man.
And we've had many lifetimes together. It's very interesting stories.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, no, you're right, man.
We're here. We're back. Steve, we're going to remember. Don, you remember? I remember. I'm starting to. I'm like, I'm not creating nothing new. We're getting everything back. It's your birthright. It's time to resonate with that thought, which will send you up that path. You are
conversation later, Stephen. I had missing time, and Frank had to have a nap, and we saw each other on the ship. That's a whole other story.
Shit. Dude, I had this moment.
I'm not surprised.
Yo, I must have like came in at a moment where I overtook the other guy, the other version of me, because I didn't know what was going on. And I kind of went into this room, and as the door opened, it went zzz, and Don was just standing there looking at me. And I'm like, Don? And he was like, hey, Frank. And there was all these students. And I'm like, I'm not interrupting your class, am I? And then he talked to me about something 2 seconds quick, and then goes, oh, it's okay. It's the other Frank. He knew that I had jumped in and was like, nah, buddy, it's okay. Oh, come on, we'll go. You were just coming to pick me up. I said, yeah, that's right. I was coming to get you. Man, how did I get up on the ship? And like, it just blew my mind. Right. And I had one of those moments.
That's so wild, man.
He had it in his QHT. Somebody sent it to me and said, you have to watch this right now. This guy saw you on the ship.
That's so wild, man. That is crazy, dude. Like, no, I mean, I like I said, I am not surprised. The connection that we all have, it's funny, man. I've been in other dimensions, in other realms in my dreams lately, man. I've been hanging out with the talking heads, the massive talking heads a lot. I don't know why I've been going there a lot, man, but we've been having some very, I guess from what I remember, some very funny conversations and some very intense conversations. So, but it is, man, it's crazy. It's crazy where we go when we're in these altered states of consciousness. I wanted to tell you actually a story, Frank. I was doing my Kriya and I had a natural DMT breakthrough for like about 30 seconds, and I got through. I saw the jesters and I went like this.
Yeah.
And then I like came back because they love to do that to people.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
for
I
sure.
broke through and I was just like, "Urgh," and I knew it was going to be short lived. And then I just ended up coming back into my body. But like, yeah, no, I wanted to tell you that because I knew you thought that was funny.
When I saw it the last time I saw the jesters, I was coming through like as if I was on a escalator or something, and they were like, "Where you going, buddy?" Right? And I'm like, "Oh, sorry guys, can't play with y'all. I graduated." And I was like, "Peace out." Right? Like I just left on them, and they were going, "No, we wanted to play." I'm like, "Nah, I don't play kids games no more with you guys. I can't do it."
Exactly.
Yeah, you guys are too much. And pulled myself out of that shit.
They are too much, man. That's like, God, where do they get off? But
yeah. So this conversation just set me down another weird path. So mom had a vibration plate in the living room that you could stand on, and it vibrates so you could lose weight and you exercise on it or whatever, but it's intense, right? So there's all different modes and all kinds of stuff. So I'd be smoking, hanging out on that the other night. And I didn't know it goes up to 100. I've been using it on level 2 and 3, right? I didn't know it goes to 100 levels. So I put on one of the modes, and the mode was like the highest mode. So at some point during it, it went, and my whole body just went into that. And I was just sitting there. I was standing on it. I was smoking a blunt, and I go, and the room completely was a DMT place. It looked real, but it wasn't cartoonish, but the energy around just like opened. I like vibrated out. And I said to my wife, "Yo, you don't understand what happened during," because it goes in 10-minute blocks. I go, it vibrated to the point where I saw what I would see if I took like a hit of DMT. You would just kind of come into it and be like, "Oh, hello, what's this?" Right? That second hit brings you in, and the third one rockets you to another place. But I noticed that this machine, so the vibration and then the proper frequency being maybe, because we were laughing. We were laughing a lot, me and my wife, when this happened. So maybe like the right vibe and frequency there around you, and then a vibration, you've actually vibrating will get you somewhat into the same places. I just noticed this because if I smoke a couple of hits of weed, sometimes if it's really strong, I go right into DMT world.
Mm-hmm. I theorize that's because there's a correlation, I think, between our natural anandamides, which are our natural cannabinoids, and our endogenous DMT. Because if you look at the cerebral spinal fluid, which is the nectar, the that we can generate, and get it into our cerebral or into our hypothalamus cavity to reap the benefits of that and have that experience. But in the cerebral spinal fluid, there is DMT and natural anandamides. So there's a combination of both. So there's actually only specific anandamides that are found in cerebral spinal fluid. So that makes sense on how like there's this interaction with it. And I've noticed when I've smoked a little too before my my Kundalini yoga, my natural DMT releases are more intense. They're more potent.
Oh yeah,
and they last a lot longer. So I think there's definitely a very interesting correlation with that, man.
So let's throw it down and get crazier. What if you had a plate that you could do yoga on that played the frequency?
That would be.
Now what? Now you would go in whatever that is, Wouldn't
100%, man.
that mean that?
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, you look at one of the biggest things, man. You look at a lot of the architecture in India. You look at a lot of the architecture in like China, a lot of these Asian countries, and there's a lot of DMT-esque architecture.
Everything is. It's all
Dude. I know, right? But it's like you look at some of these, man. Like I forgot the one building they were talking about. I think it was Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat was the building that they were talking about. And they were talking about how like you go inside Angkor Wat and you look at the ceiling and it looks like hyperspace. Like the fucking ceiling looks like hyperspace. And
that's awesome. Because that's a creator pulling it. They must have been training back then and seeing it, or from there, or accessing that. Because the magic carpet, the designs on there, the carpet doesn't fly. You sit on there and you do some kind of psychedelic, and it comes up around you, and now you're in the room with it. So the designs make the room, and it's like you're off. That's it. You're out. You're on the carpet, and that's your little area. So what if you were on the vibrate? This is what it was putting it all together. If you were on the vibration plate, magic carpet, holding a resonant frequency that's for over there, right here.
Oh man, that would be some powerful stuff, dude. And like I think that's they could have potentially have done things like that, man. You know, like I mean, even
thinking about it, they had to have.
They had to have, man. Like, you know, and that's the thing too. Like when we look at a lot of we really, in all honesty, man, humanity, if we're going by consensual history, which I've kind of done away with at this point, but if we're going by that, humanity we've always been like this. Like, you know what I mean? We've always been interested in, you know, the divine connection and things like that. So it's like, it has to be, we had to have had some kind of connection. I mean, you even look at, shoot, dude, what was it? Yopo, they're saying, which is the DMT snuff, could have been in existence for up to 20 to 30,000 years before even its discovery. So it's like, you know, you look at all of this stuff. We have either this combination of like these, you're ingesting DMT, or these endogenous DMT experiences that kind of shaped that architecture, like I was saying. But also too, you know, we look at the resonance chambers inside of monasteries. Is it possible, you know, that they were doing yoga and meditating in the same kind of frequency? Maybe the plate is just a mini resonance chamber replica in and of itself. So like, no, I most certainly do. They had to have been, man. They had to have been. I think potentially there was a way to access that state too. I also think potentially too, there was a time, I mean,
I was at a show, did a song, the whole stage was lined with drums, and all these guys I did one song. It was great. The crowd went nuts. It was for Playboy TV, guys. Right after I got off the stage with my partner, but I was still up on the stage, the drums started. And it set this tone for this very adventurous crowd to go absolutely fucking berserk. Because I'm talking robes off, everything's flying, there's juices everywhere. I was there. My ex-girlfriend was there. Miss Lola was sitting with us, and her husband. That was her show, the Miss Lola, something Playboy TV, and we were watching. And Reggie Noble was there, the rapper, and he came. He said, Redman. He came and he sat with us. He says, like, yo, we were all smoking. He's like, this shit's crazy. We got to get out of here. I saw like hundreds of people having sex. It opened the door. What you had just said reminded me of this. And then it flashed to that. The drum, there was nobody. The singer was just doing like these 4 lines at a time and then just hanging back. And then a couple of popular lines from another song and just hanging back. But there was like 20 drums there, man. And it was like opening the doors to that place. So as you're saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what that was. They set the tone with the live music. Dun, 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 dun. Everyone, no, nothing but drums.
That's
hours.
man.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
holy shit. Yeah, we left
know-
after that. We couldn't stay. I was like, I can't stay in this.
No, of course. I mean, you talk about, man. I mean, that must have been even that frequency could affect people and take over people to the point where they lost the inhibition of what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah, like it's okay, go.
It's
right?
okay to be doing this.
It was wild. It was wild, right? I'm from New York. I'm down in the city. We're like, yo, everybody's cool here, right? I ain't never been that cool with that many people. But at the same time, it was weird to be part of it and watch it. I'm like looking at hindsight. I've been doing this for weeks now. I've been finding those moments and defining them properly, redefining them. So what if you took this sound plate and was able to put it on a weapon to project it, and you can shoot it 20 feet out and open a portal?
Oh, dude.
Right? And then
Yeah.
the Stargate itself with the different signs and symbols around it played at the right tone is like the telephone number that gets you where you want to go.
Yes.
So, and it keeps it maybe like you don't have to hold it open. Once you get it open, then that keeps it open. Like I'm seeing all this weird stuff as we're talking. I'm going, wow, this isn't as hard as people think it is. And I think it's just been there forever and ever.
No, I'm with you, man, because it is. It's like, it's coming to us because we're remembering it. We know that there's something to this. There's that, that innate knowing. It's that remembering. And it's like, I mean, we're thinking like, man, my ancestors used to this kind of stuff. I mean, you look at a lot of, even I was trying to think of the other thing that they found too, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But there have been these weird blocks, these weird ingrained like crystalline slabs that were supposedly this type of technology that they found that worked with frequency. So like, just like you're saying, man, it's almost like the tones are like this pin number that opens up this portal and keeps it locked. And I mean, you look at a lot of the different Stargate locations from, like around the world, like, is this potentially how they operated? Did they project that frequency, that pin number into that portal to get it to open? I mean, you look at the Stargates in Sumeria, you look at a lot of the other, there was potentially some on Easter Island, all over the place, but like, maybe this was the way they did it,
What if it was like the inner Earth or your tribe or some other character from another planet had a symbol, right? Check this out. They just have a symbol, right? So he's like, tells you, if you ever need me, symbol. And you're like, what? He's like, you put it on the wall. So they get a giant rock and just paint it on the rock, the symbol. And then they semicircle and they start singing through tubes and stuff to hit the note that is his frequency.
Yes.
And then it opens to your guy, like who you're trying to get.
Dude,
through everyone doing their part, like playing the key on the piano. I can't play all the keys. I'm going to need all 20 of you guys to sing this song with me.
So speaking of drums, man, so another thing that even lends to your point too. So there's this in ancient Tibet, there was this technique they used. I love my Eastern spirituality. I can't help it. But in Eastern Tibet, or in ancient Tibet, they had this technology called the beat of the drum. And what they ended up doing, even kind of referencing what you were saying on drums, they would take these drums. Now, mind you, I don't know how they got the drums tuned to the Earth's frequency to the 20th decimal place. The 20th decimal place. Like when you look at the tuning for these, it's like 8.20 fucking numbers. It is like literally on point the exact frequency of the Earth. And what they would do is they would line it up in this triangle and they would project it against like an acoustic or a flat surface. They would have this acoustics and they would play these drums in this succession. And what these drums would do is while they were building the monastery, they would project the frequency of these drums at like this giant stone block. And what the frequency would do is it would lighten the frequency of that block and make it movable. We're talking like, like something like a 5 to a 6 ton stone. And they would keep doing this beat on the drums, and they would keep projecting this frequency out, and they would move the stone while this frequency is putting, and they would lift it and they would put it into place. So like this is kind of, like even kind of what you were talking about too, projecting that frequency. This has been done even for potentially longer than we've even thought. So
I'm having such an internal weirdness. A picture what you're saying, and then as it moves throughout history, it gets watered down to the drummers on a battlefield.
Dude, oh man. Oh, dude, that is resonating hard, bro. That it very well could be.
That's why they're up front. They're like the third line. They're rallying and getting everyone going with that music, and they're trying to overtake the other guy's music because it overtakes. That's
why. We're remembering some shit tonight, guys. Holy crap, man. We're like, this has to be what was done, because and like even the using this, like you were saying with the symbol, using it to call this person. I mean, that symbol very well could have been a cymoglyph. Like, dude, I think we're looking at
light language for all we know.
Exactly, a light language. So it's like the frequency table goes from sound you can't hear to light you can't see. 100%. Yes. So, but no, I think that's what it is. Maybe cymatics is a light language, because when we look at, if somebody took a cross section of a photon, it was recently that somebody took a cross section of a photon. Let me see if I could pull it up real quick. But it looks like a cymoglyph, and he was just talking about light. So let's see here.
So you are a sun. You come from the sun. You come through the portal of the sun. You are a sun within yourself, and the sun sound is Om, which is why they tell you to Om in meditation, because it's popping out the original OG raw organic consciousness frequency signal.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, it's like, let me see if I can find this real quick.
Like, they're finally getting it.
I know, right? Like it's freaking wild, man. So I can't find this, but if what I'll do is I'll look it up, and I'll send it to you guys. But some person actually took a cross section of light, like they were able to take a photo of light manifesting. And it's literally in the shape of a cymoglyph. Like, is it like a constant spider web? Yes, Shiba, we knew. Yes, it looks like that. Quantum, yep. And but no, dude, that makes a very good point. Like a light language, we look at light and sound too. We and we can compare them, and we can see there's similarities to that as well. So like, I definitely agree with that, man. It could be a light language.
Even like I'm thinking now, like our names are like piped out of our throat, right? So you would call someone's name and it resonates the frequency to get that character to turn, answer, pick up, spin around, right? So what if that was a more complicated tone that you'd be using? But saying that mantra style can take you to something different, do something, manipulate something else, liquefy something, or maybe make something that was hard a little softer so you can make it malleable. You know what I mean?
It very well, dude. No, 100%. I mean, that's to me, in my opinion, that's the only way some of the megaliths could have been built. There had
levitation from a bee shouldn't be possible, but they levitate the fat bumblebee, right? Yeah. So it's moving its things, but it's resonating that frequency, and that frequency heals us. So if you were able to match that frequency, would you not be able to levitate? I mean, this might be a little woo, but
no, dude. I mean,
there's videos on YouTube of levitating stones, and I mean like piles of stones with sound. You're exactly right, Frank. It can be done. I've seen the video looking into this.
No, man. I was agreeing with you. Well, here's the thing too. I mean, you look at yogis, right? You look at some of the yogis of old, and even a lot of Tibetan monks who were capable of levitation. Is it possible that the mantra that they were chanting is what hit that frequency too? You know?
Make the mantra, you say it so it surrounds you, right? You say it loud if you need it projected out. You say it's soft and deep if you want it just in here. You could bring it up and back. Why can't we do? So were we shown this originally, or did we get the gnosis, knowledge? Like back then, what if we were educated by bigger beings? What? Okay, let's get crazy.
Definitely, I would agree with that.
What if we were the bigger beings and the little beings? They were fractals of us. And then we taught them what we knew, went off, and then we shot up the line. Now here the three of us are having a conversation.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. Well, that's you know how I feel, Frank. I've had experiences that have told me that the human is the ET/angel and the ET/angel is the human. So I do think that whether you want to call them the Elohim, the Anunnaki, whatever you want to call them, they were us. They definitely were us. And you know, how the fractalization occurred. And I had an experience where I saw this on mushrooms one time too. This was a very, very early experience of mine, but I saw this kind of lens to what you were saying, though. It's so crazy. All the synchronicities tonight are just nuts. But I saw the birth of the physical realm. I saw the primordial Om, the vibrations spread out. And then in this experience, Source created the first 7 archetypal beings. Now you think the pantheon of 7. And Source created these beings and set them forth into this reality to experience it for it. And over time, those beings fractalized themselves down and fractalized themselves down into the point where we are who we are today. And so I completely, what you just said is they were us, but we're fractals of them. 100% agree. 100%
and time
agree.
It's spherical kind of, or it's like kind of moves like that. So at any point, future you could be with past you, and past you could be with future you, and you could show up on either side and it wouldn't matter. It would just be like, it wouldn't be, the information could just be given. So if we were the intelligent being, you can go, oh, well, we know how to time travel as well, and bopped back here, did some stuff, and then their DNA being added to, like, let's say, the other DNAs, and we made us, and then started dropping some information. And they were some, you know, they wind up feeling privileged because they have the information as you move down the line. Everyone here starts to forget it, and they want them to forget it, and they make it this religious overtone, like we have the answers and you don't, so you should pray to this guy. And it's like, yo, hold yourself. We all were able to have that rite and ritual, and we all had that information, and then it was slowly taken, and now here we are, and society is the way it is now, many lifetimes later, still a fractal of the big guys, which is why they keep showing up. Like, no, we love you, because they can't go any further. They hit the wall on their end. Like, yo, this is me, little me.
It is, man. It is like that.
I met an Anunnaki. He looked just like me and my dad. He looked exactly like us, but he was gigantic. And I said, bro, your beard hair, not one out of place. I go, do you even lift, bro? Just like that. And he looked at me. He was like, no, never. I go, oh, you just look like that. I'm just awesome every day. And he's like, yeah. I go, how'd you do that? He goes, I just tuned my DNA. I was like, oh, just tune your DNA. Oh, yeah. You want to pass that information on to me, bro?
Dude, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you.
But if we are them that like that, then we have that ability.
100%, man. It's about remembering. What were you going to say, Don?
I gapped out. It's been just making me laugh too. I was just joking about the fact that I was always a small kid. Like, there was a time they thought I might have been a dwarf, but I had these unusually oversized biceps, and I used to run around making my mom laugh singing the Popeye song, because I was like this tiny little kid with the squeaky little voice, but like potato arm, and Popeye, and yeah, so she's got me laughing and singing and shit. So
that's funny, man.
Yeah, because you were talking about the buff Anunnaki. She's like, "Is that what you did? Did you genetically alter your DNA before you got here?" Just that, right?
Because they tell me, my guides right now are even saying it. They're like, you're just going to activate your DNA, and the ones that activate are going to look like they're 30, no matter what age they're at. If they're over 30, like it looks like they're age regressing. Like they look healthy, and you're like, dude, I saw some of my friends. I was like, whoa, I'm 50 years old this year. I am hyper lucky, or whatever you want to call it, to even be in this position with all of these people that I've just witnessed, like looking like they're 70. And they're like, what's your trick? I'm like, oh yeah, I conditioned my beard. Wink. But, I'm into self a little bit, not as much as I can be because of my injury, but I do the best I can with what I got. Right. And even that idea put forth inside of you is so powerful. And then they say you just activate that gene, activates, and then you start to physically change.
Well, dude, also as well, man. I mean, it's, I think what I've seen is I think that activation of that gene is done through energy work, man, like we do, because you look at chi cultivators in the Himalayas, and they're rumored to live up to 250 to 300 years old, and they maintain they maintain the appearance that they had when they first started cultivating. So like kind of what you said too, it's like you hit that point and you start to either stay the same age or you stay this physical age, even though your consciousness is still learning and all of that. It is. And that's why, like, the biggest thing, man, is like, there's so many people right now that think that the key to immortality or physical immortality is through transhumanism and AI. They couldn't be more wrong. There's an ancient method that's tried and true that you can achieve a very, very long and healthy life without merging yourself with AI or without merging yourself with some kind of machine. So, and you just kind of brought it up, man, same thing. So like, that's something I think we need to project out into the collective, man, because a lot of people it seems like in some ways, like they're always trying to bring, the transhumanism to the table when it comes to healing health problems. Like, we'll just
it worked for X, Y, and Z up front, right? You're missing an arm, you're missing a hand, fingers, body parts that you need. It is very healthy. However, on the other end of that is something very dangerous. Our route is healing ourselves, but if it's frequencies, keys, and vibrations, and activations, so you'd be activating the gene where sickness no longer affects you. You'd be activating a gene that makes your body just start to heal. Right? It's not like snap of the face. A lot of people are like, well, just heal then and you'll be fine. I'm like, I am doing great. They said I wouldn't be able to walk at 50. So I'm doing great. Right. And I've only used ayahuasca, but people that I have had a lot of clients say to me stuff like, and I've had this happen to me where I'm like, oh, I'm not going to die this round. This round, I walk into that realm through the frequency. There's a whole bunch of us that are going to do it. And I've had some say, yeah, I'm staying for like 300-400 years and then I'm out because I have this other shit to do, but I'm allowed to do this amount. And then if you project further out, those that are choosing let's just call it the Jedi way for a second, like that, where you can just do it naturally 1,000 years out, because of the split that occurs now with the transhumanisms and space gods and religions and all that bullshit. We're going to break off and there's some kind of split that's going to occur. Well, that split, because there's only the two timelines, loops back around in 1,000 years. And guess who's going to want to meet us again? There's that AI again. And now it's time to finish this. So we're going to get 1,000 years of peace, but that's really 1,000 years of evolution that has been halted for a long time to occur. So you can get back to that future guy that showed up, that gave you the information original. Mind blowing, but grow into that guy.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you 100%. We got Spinja. Oh, she was sitting down for a minute.
Sorry, I had to excuse myself for a second, and I didn't want to leave a blank screen for everybody. So she was gonna pop in because she's always got cool shit to say too. So
Absolutely. You,
No
Don,
worries.
you're looking good, by the way.
I was gonna say, man, I'm happy you're with us, bro. Yeah.
I love you, brother.
thank you. Yeah, I went through another. Me and Steven joke about the amount of near-death experiences I've had, which nothing but confirms the fact that I'm definitely here for something. But yeah, the new year, well, last year ended with a near-death experience, and I'm one less gallbladder, but feeling much better.
Right. Yeah, no, I knew you were going to be okay because you got shit to do.
The
I
man,
knew
the
that
man
from
is
the tip.
Deadpool.
I was like, yo, you got to do this stuff over here. I'm right here if you need me. And
The
they got
man
me
is
doing
Deadpool.
different stuff. I have my guy that shows me all this shit, and I'm like, oh my god, all this new stuff.
Like
Okay.
Steven said, it's actually kind of a joke. You just said he's Deadpool. William, our son, calls me Dadpool because I should be legally dead at least like 9 times.
Yeah,
Hey.
I don't know, man. I don't know how you did it. It's crazy.
He's the
Yeah.
creator.
The
He just
one
keeps bringing
involved
himself
water
back.
in 900. The one incident I actually asked Steven in his daily life, he's an electrician. I was like, okay, I got electrocuted by 920 volts while standing in wet boots in a puddle, holding on to a recut saw. Should I be alive?
Yeah, no, Source was like, Don, go back.
Dude, no, there's no way you would survive that. There's no way a normal person would survive that for sure. Because I mean, it's different. Like if you're just getting hit with like a connection, the water lock that occurs, like water lock, it intensifies the current, man. And so like the fact that he walked away from that unscathed without any problems is definitely a testament to we
And it's
need
an
Don
electric
here.
universe.
Yeah, we need Don here now, man. So but
I
no,
had
man,
to come and meet you guys.
I am the
I had to come and meet you guys.
master.
dude, I'm telling you, bro, freaking, it's wild, guys. I'm grateful we're all here tonight, man.
I had a great time tonight.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we've gone up over 2 hours. I don't give a shit about the YouTube algorithm, but I don't want to keep you guys all night. Do you want to tell everybody where to get a hold of you, especially you, Frank, with your tunes? Because we didn't even get into that. That's one of the few things I listen to in my truck. I don't listen to the radio.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't listen to the radio at work. I don't listen to even CD. It's your stuff running through the truck. So people in Alberta are getting exposed to Sons of the Suns every time I go clean the toilet. So,
And if the speakers get blown, we're gonna have a conversation.
It's that, as long as it's spiral spinning, it's all good because we be winning, right? So you could check us out, Sons of the Suns Music. We're everywhere. If you just type it in, check out the YouTube. We could use a couple more YouTube clicks on there. I think we only have like 350, but we just passed 1.4 million down streams. So I was on TuneCore. I was like, what is this? And there was like a huge banner congratulating me. And I'm like, for what? I got 300 people on YouTube. They're like, you're everywhere. You're not just on YouTube, which is pretty cool. And I appreciate that. And thank you for everyone out there. And check me out at Fearless Tribe on YouTube. That's Frank Castle Fearless. And that's it. You can find me there. I love you guys so much. This was so good.
I love you too, bro. This was a freaking amazing convo, man. So, guys, I am Steven of BG Cast. You can find me along with Don on the Forbidden Knowledge Network at www.forbiddenknowledge.news. We have an amazing network. I love being a part of it. So does Don. And yeah, you can find us there. Definitely support the new documentaries that are coming out as well from Chris and Ryder. And you can find me, guys, on Rumble and BG Cast, YouTube, BG Cast. You can find me on all podcast platforms under BG Cast and all social media under BG Cast. And I just want to say it was really freaking awesome to sit back down with Mr. Frankie Fearless tonight. And it was really fucking awesome to sit with Don. I think this is a conversation for the books. You know, I feel like we opened each other up to so much stuff. Like Frank opened us up to this perspective. I opened us. Don comes along and we're just combining these perspectives, man. But this is what it's about. This is the work we need to do. you know, and this is what we have to do to put this into our collective consciousness, man. People like us, we're these energetic light posts grounding the higher frequencies into this realm. And this conversation tonight, bro, just grounded a whole bunch of higher frequencies into this realm.
Oh yeah.
And we're gonna open up this remembrance. We're gonna figure this out, guys, one way or another.
Yeah, no, it's gonna happen. We win, and it's gonna be awesome. And you get to evolve and change and see it and be part of the magic. But you got to do the work. Got to heal that trauma, baby.
For real,
Stay fearless, everyone.
Absolutely. And thank you both so much for an amazing 2-hour chat. Like, I could have went another 2. I had to go pee, but I'm good now. But I want to thank you both, and I want to thank everybody that was in the chat. You know, throw a like and subscribe if you dug what you saw tonight. And for everybody else that's watching and listening in the future, if you can go outside after you listen to this, do it, because it's better than sitting in front of a screen. Thank you.